Hello, everybody. Welcome to our current energies, August 2017 here in our Sacred Self Healing platform. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I welcome everybody here. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear me? Yes, wonderful. All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you for the feedback. We can, if you want to, open up the microphone for everyone to just speak. As you know, these meetings here, these discussions once a month about the current energies that we are experiencing are part of the free membership service here for the Sacred Self-Healing Program. And the whole objective here is to be able to exchange things and to discuss things, and mostly so that we don't feel like we're the only ones. And I have a feeling that we have a lot to talk about here today because things are cooking. For those of you who are new, you can use the webinar software to raise your hand, which indicates to me that you would like to speak in the microphone, which everybody is welcome to do. Or you can just type comments or questions in the text box. So anytime, just try to keep it short so I don't have to focus too much on reading while I'm talking. So yeah, I guess we have like 15 people here right now, so I'm going to unmute your microphones. This will help you to just chime in. However, you will have to control your microphone yourself, or else we have all your background noises in the recording. So if you just turn your own microphone off, and then whenever you want to speak, you don't need permission to speak. You just turn it off. Or turn it on accordingly. All right. Okay. Once more, welcome and thank you so much for your attention. All right. Someone can't hear me. I suppose that's just her microphone. Sorry for this. I need to respond here. All right, there you go. Okay. All right, yes, thank you for the feedback. So how's everybody doing? How are you guys dealing? How are you guys coping?
It's been an interesting couple of days.
Say that again, please.
It's Cheryl, and it's been an interesting couple of days.
Yep. And here we are. Okay, I mean, think of it this way. We are consciously choosing to work with energetic sensations, to reflect deeper within and to talk about it. We're working on all of this. How do you think the rest of the world, who is not even remotely informed, you know, about something like energetic sensitivity, absorption, projection, and so forth, how the world is dealing with this? This is a really important aspect here, you know, because we tend to refer everything to us, and while this is part of our practice here, you know, to see our part in things and to reflect within, there's a very important message that I want to convey to you, and this is in times like this, okay, last 2 weeks and the following 5 to 6 weeks, not everything you are experiencing is your own. And please bear in mind that most people are powerless in the way they perceive these outer things. Okay, so they won't be able to pinpoint it. They won't be able to communicate it. They won't even be able to be aware of it. They will just feel powerless, and the way this will play out for them is in form of reactivity, in form of trying to control, in form of anxiety, and also in form of a lot of physical conditions, chronic or really unique energetic conditions. So it is safe to assume that for the next 4 to 6 weeks, yes, gastrotypo symptoms, nervous symptoms, but also like arthritis, anything that has to do with physical resistance to a certain situation, which can be joint, muscle, and skeletal issues, nervous issues, and anything that has to do with processing emotions. So gallbladder, liver, and of course gastrointestinal area. So this is usually like kind of like your the area between your chest and your pelvic area. So these are areas in the physical that are affected the most right now, and that makes people irritable, and it makes
Jona,
go nuts.
I want to, it's Cheryl, and I want to tell you that you have described my entire life. Like,
Sorry.
I have been batshit crazy ever since I can remember, but I didn't really recognize how batshit crazy it was, right? I just thought there was something the matter with me. But it's just starting to happen of late, and I think it's that, well, I'm retraining my brain. Clearly, it's the neural net. And I'll tell you, it's a lot easier not being batshit crazy, because batshit crazy, and I went there yesterday for a while just to see how that felt again. I keep saying, why do I have to test the waters all the time? But anyway, I forgot that I'm no longer batshit crazy, so the shoes didn't fit very well, and thank you again for making time for helping me put the fire out. It's not totally gone yet because I can still feel it come up. But what my point is, in retrospect and hindsight, and paying attention to what happened yesterday and how it attempts to come back today and blah, 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 blah. Again, my whole life was like that. So that is standard operating procedure. That as far as I knew, that who I was, truly who I was, how I operated, how I reacted, how my body felt, everything you just said is everything I've always been, and never anything different, except for maybe when I was unconscious on the operating table or something, or asleep. So now I'm really making cognitive choices about making this part of my neuro pathway, that this is now who I really am, and this is the normal. And it is a really interesting. We've talked about the internal battle before, about dark and light, or true self and ego, or whatever. But it's just becoming more and more clear of that this is what it's supposed to be like. And I'm not there yet. I know I'm not there yet because the rest is still so ingrained. And when I come out of it, I go, I don't ever want that to happen again. I never want to feel like that. But I can, so when we talk about straddling two worlds, well, not in the normal sense of the two worlds we're straddling. I'm talking about batshit crazy and don't have to be there anymore. And oh man, I just feels really great not being there, but it's so pulling. And I almost use the word addicting because I know it's about the juice, but sometimes I just forget that that's not who I am. So when you ask about what about, the other 85% of the people that don't even know there's an option, I just think about when I am in zombie mode and when I am reacting and batshit crazy. So I'm driving on the highway right now while I'm talking to you, and I'm going slow because I'm cognizant that they're all batshit crazy, and I don't want to die today. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today with the current energy, because if you're not really in tune with the concept of collective consciousness, then you're just you're just normally batshit crazy, and I don't know if it even affects a lot of the people if they know there's a difference. It's just the way, because I want to think that sometimes. Well, I don't want to, but I know that I'm really swayed into just thinking that's just the way it is. So
that's a wonderful point.
I'm in a weird spot right now. It's a good spot, but yesterday's dip into shitland was perfect. Again, ask to see, and you shall see.
So this, thank you, Cheryl. This is such a beautiful point, and this is exactly also what I wanted to put out here for discussion, because we can get so wrapped up in our own stuff, and this is indeed a bit of a volatile state that you're describing right now when you become aware of how crazy all this is, and how easy it is to get suckered into it. How easy it is to just act like everybody else, really. I mean, reactive, anxious, in pain, in victimhood, in anger, and just trying to control everything to the point where we're running around like a chicken with a cut off head, like which would qualify as a sort of appearing to be nuts. But the subjective aspect of that is, just as you pointed out, is that if everybody does it, then it kind of seems to normal. And that is what we are breaking through here with this program. We're breaking through what is considered to be normal, but not because we're special or unique, because we are training ourselves to align our energy to the true us, the true who we truly are. And so it's only then when we realize what is not normal. And it is only then when we can realize what we no longer need and what we no longer want. That's the problem of subjectivity. So that's why we talk so much about perception, because perception is misleading. Perception depends on sort of the frequency level that we are tuned into, the radio station that we are tuned into. And if we are tuned into the radio station of the collective unconscious, all right, then all this that you just described, Cheryl, appears to be normal. And it's kind of cool, to commiserate with everyone, like, oh, isn't this bad? And isn't this a bad president? And doesn't this hurt? And isn't this unfair? And all this.
I just had one of those little comical moments that popped in. Thank you to whoever keeps sending those to me. But when my kids were little, I used to tell them there was a fable about the three billy goats gruff. And so there was a bridge that they had to cross, and there was a troll that lived underneath of the bridge. And just when you were talking, it just came in loud and quick, because I used to read the story in a voice, and it would be, "Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?" Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm feeling right now, is I'm trip-trapping over the bridge, and that troll that lives underneath is reaching up going, "Get back, okay. God, supposed to be on this side of the bridge."
So the volatility or the vulnerability that we feel through this is that we, of course, now begin to realize how much we do things based on our ego stuff, and how often we actually violate our own integrity through that. So it's a bit difficult in this phase to not go into judgment about ourselves, all right? And to not beat ourselves up. This is why I brought this up. If you feel compelled to judge yourself for going into these gruff states, let's just call it these troll states, okay? Then it helps to see the innocence in that. By all you really need to do is look around you. I mean, it's literally when you're observing this in other people, you can literally feel their helplessness, their powerlessness. And if you can connect to that powerlessness in this other person, then it will become easier for you to see yourself in that state. So basically, when we go into our ego states, and I want to, for those that are new here, I'll come back to the ego states, but when we go into our ego states, we are literally externalizing our powers, meaning we are not in our power. And that's why this is a bit tricky for us, for as long as we're learning all this and reprogramming ourselves, as you said it earlier, because we're now seeing both ends. We're now becoming really aware of this, how easy it is to get into that inner troll state. All right. So my energy tip here is to not, to really just build that habit of not judging anything. Okay? Do not judge yourself. Do not judge others. But if we find ourselves judging others, then that's a good indication for ourselves that we are still judging ourselves as well. So what I've done in the past when I was working on this, I really became aware and tried to catch myself with every judgment that I had about others, because I know that these judgments that I have for others, that they reflect back to me, which means that if I am there, which I won't be aware of when I'm there, I will judge myself the same way. So that's a tip here, to really pay attention to these hardwired unconscious judgments that we do, because that makes this phase a little easier. Then we don't have to beat ourselves up, and when we don't beat ourselves up, we don't have to deal with the secondary cycle, which can be the drama, of what we're experiencing, and of course then the whole cycle that gets triggered with this. So as soon as we go into this place of judging ourselves, we're feeding the troll. We're feeding the troll in us, and that means that it's only a matter of time until we kind of freak out, like be it mentally, emotionally, physically, you name it. So that's why it's so important in times like this, where the outer conditions are extremely challenging for everybody, to keep ourselves in this place of inner calm. And before we react, to take a breather and say, okay, they're nuts, but I understand. I can go there in a heartbeat, but I choose not to. But most people around me don't really have that choice. They have no clue what ego is, what ego payoff is, what energizing means. They can't. So it's useless to judge that. It's important then to go into the place of inner reflection and say, okay, you know what? I'm calming down. I'm doing everything I can to stay in my center. And as I am doing this, and this is very important, as I'm doing this, I'm also providing sort of an energetic safe haven for others. Because if I don't feed it within me, then I'm not feeding it in others either. And that's why this time here right now, in August, and all the way through September, will be, or is already, very challenging on our relationships, because we have this constant interaction. And when there's these times of escalating energies, then it's all just a matter of time. There's like tons of time bombs, that are just waiting to explode. And that's why this discipline that we're trying to develop here of learning how to center, learning how to reflect within, how to connect within, how this is a very practical skill now to get through these times without major dramas. That doesn't mean that we're not going to experience such things as Cheryl just shared with us. So we can still have breakdowns, and the goal is not to never ever, going into our ego again. This will hardly be possible. But the goal is to get out of these places quicker. and to disengage from what happens, to focus on how to handle it better. And that in itself, just shifting our attitude towards like, okay, I disengage from what is happening right now. All that matters to me is how I can handle this, like say more gracefully, right? And as we shift our attitude in that way, we're already transcending parts of this electricity. Electricity in the sense of things that are triggered in us. Yeah, really cool point. It's very, very important to see ourselves here in conjunction with others. Yeah, anybody else?
Jona,
Yeah.
hello everybody, this is Sebastian. Since I have that beautiful flow of passengers, and after our last coaching session, I was playing Invisible. It was very, very interesting.
Can you explain this very quick for everybody else? What this means?
Sure. After our intensive energetical perception. Like first thing is to recognize that there are energetic exchanges between us and others, whoever we are interacting with, and then to get to that powerful place of choice is good to understand how we can hold our energy within without let's say expressing or projecting our energy on others. So in our last coaching session, we've been talking about become invisible. So it's like that exercise to hold the energy within and to be very aware of any projections on others, and to pretty much just understand that without that those projections, others won't be as much, how to put it, they will not fire back on us with those interactions. Very interesting thing happened yesterday. I got to this really peaceful place, so peaceful that I almost levitated in my car when I was driving. I'm thinking like, okay, I need to focus on my road.
Yes.
But what I realized at some point, I had many different passengers, and with very different energies. Amazing to me was how fast they calmed down, and pretty much either just focus on whatever they were doing, or interacting with me with that really peaceful way. And it was amazing to observe how those projections that I would serve my passengers, let's say 2 months ago, how they were bringing to me that all load of energetical stuff that I would need to deal with a little later. And nothing like that happened yesterday and today. It was just like very peaceful, very soft, and whoever there is, you can observe it. And without the judgment that you were pointing out just a minute ago, you can see that that energy doesn't really want to play with you anymore. It's just like, okay, there's a piece, I don't want to deal with it.
How did you do it, Sebastian? What did you change?
Two things. I've realized that when I focus myself on my inner energy, it's just nice and solid.
Okay, so you did you do any specific energy work techniques, or did you just sort of try to focus on a specific physical feeling?
I've used probably just since it's the most familiar, when we go into any transmission, we start from connecting with our hearts. So
Okay.
just the focus on our heart can be replicated to anything else. And let's say if I would like to manifest something, I can focus my energy on it. And leaving any expectations and leaving any hunting after it. but just by focusing on it, that manifestation may come much faster, and let's say like it's more reliable, to put it this way. So that's what I've done. I was just focusing my thoughts on where I want to be and where I am at this particular moment, and it both like with manifestations and with just feeling those exchanges, those interactions with others. It was like just right away, like just by focusing where is my mind, where are my thoughts, and where they want to go, like what is my ego trying to bring up. I'm like, okay, I see you, but I'm right here.
Okay. So like a grounding, almost?
Yes, yes. It's like a grounding and centering at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool. Someone is asking, Kaylin is asking, is it okay to open up the heart space in public places or at work? I think, Sebastian, this is exactly what you're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. Just for explanation for others, you are a driver, like like a taxi driver, so that you're basically always in that sort of transitional state of private and public place, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. In your car. So what do you guys think? Is it okay to open up the heart space in public places or at work? I mean, this is a question to all of you, because this is a quite frequent question and actually really important for us to get a feel for yes or no, or how, if we want to, or how not to. So one of the aspects that you brought up, Sebastian, is that practicing sort of non-interaction can help to feel a bit more consolidated, a bit more centered, because then we get into this place where we can choose our interaction more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's one aspect. What do others think? Okay, here Eloise says yes, but not too big. Balancing. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. It has to do with balancing. But the balancing is the thing that is so hard for us, because most of us, if we know how to connect with our heart and to really be in this sort of soft space, we often just practice this in conditions like, say, in meditation or in a transmission or in a really safe place, like, say, walking in nature or something. And so we don't really know how to do this when we are in places that could be considered to be hostile environments, like, say, a subway or a grocery store. Or how do you guys deal with this?
No, I will just add really quick to those interactions, since it's part of the answer for it from my side. That once we go away from the judgment and understand that if we are not in that fearful state, that something will happen if we will be open, or if we will be in that nice soft space, for a lot of those things that would like to attack us, they're just not there. Like without that fear, we pretty much let go of that magnetizing field for those things. And the judgment, I know that it's very difficult sometimes, especially in those public places, to go away with it. It takes, from my perspective, it took me quite a while to disconnect from being judgmental. Many people would talk over the phone in my car, or talk with their friends about something. And it's a beautiful practice, let's say, like you are on the subway, listening to others, to be in that space, listening to them, but without any connection to all those things that they are talking about. Mm. I don't know if it's clear, but it's a little bit like reading the billboard. Seeing, understanding what is the meaning, but not connecting to that meaning.
Yeah, so, I think, Julianne, you mean the same thing, right? It's about staying in the heart, but not projecting. Mm-hmm. not projecting anything with it, like not even projecting that we're in our heart right now. You know, like, in some circles, this is one of these misdirections that I often mention, where this is being overemphasized. You know, that we are in our hearts. So to not project, to just really be in a place, like Sebastian said, where we don't even have anything to defend, because we are sort of whole within. All right. So as a practical example here, personally, I've tried to always be connected with my heart, especially when I'm in public places, because I understand, and this is partially of what Sebastian was referring to, because I understand that some of the best protection that I can have is actually being in my heart. And so I know that when I'm off center, that things can much more easily latch on, especially without me noticing it. Okay, so I know that being in my heart is something that actually strengthens me, even though it may seem as vulnerable to a degree, because we think sort of we're wide open. But from an energetic point of view, quite the opposite is actually the case. But it does require to know some of these techniques that we are practicing here, some of which we've already mentioned here today. For instance, invisibility, knowing when we project our energies, all right, and learning how to reduce that, how to reduce this radio tower in us, you know, that it's just sort of carrying our presence, our ego presence around, which, as Sebastian mentioned, creates this sort of magnet, you know, like it magnetizes something and it attracts other people's attentions. And the more attention we attract through whatever we project outward, this can be unconscious. So like, say, if I'm angry and I run around like with all this like sort of steaming energy in me, right? This can attract a lot of attention in people, because whether they're aware of energetic interaction or not, it will trigger their anger. And so road rage, for instance, is a very good example for how these excess energies jump over. So here I am angry, and you know, and it's actually even easier to feel the other way around. Here I am, all normal, neutral, not thinking anything, and all of a sudden somebody behind me is starting to like push and honk and then overtakes me, almost cuts me off, and then shows me the finger. Well, here you go. 99 out of 100 times we will get angry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's has a lot to do with the energetic interaction that is taking place. It's like a jump over. It's like when we have this radio station on that projects things out, we are basically providing a channel for energies on that level to come in as well. So what happens if we are in our hearts? When we're in our hearts and we in this inner sanctum sort of calm state, then what we are emitting is calmness, is silence. All right, and so the opposite is actually the case. So when we come in contact with others, be it only visually, the other person will feel some kind of calming effect, because there is nothing that their ego has to react to. You know, it doesn't have to react. And so it's actually safer to be in the heart than not to. The only problem is, how can we hold our space? And this is what I had recommended to Sebastian. practice invisibility, practice non-interaction. You know, just as an like in martial arts, as a form practice, just so that you can feel these variances a bit better, so you can control this a little better, or pull yourself out of any unwanted interaction with others. So what I do in public places is that I put on music on my headphones, music that I know that connects me really well. And I walk through, you know, like say shopping malls or subways or whatever with this music in the background for me. Not so loud. I still want to perceive my environment, but I don't want to be overwhelmed by it. So I use music to calm myself, to connect myself. Now, there are situations where that would be considered to be rude or something like that. So there are situations where I can't do that. And in those situations, I just do this with breathing. Breathing is the most natural thing to do. Most of you are familiar with sort of breathing through the heart, or just deep, calm breathing. And I just use this conditioning that I have built over the years of consciously breathing into my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm not fully centered, which often happens when I'm sleep deprived, when I'm in a hurry, when I'm distracted, when, you know, like say I get like 20 texts in on my phone, you know, or there's loud music on the outside, or, you know, like anything that can distract my focus, that's usually when I get hit a little more. And then it's a matter of understanding that, you know, you can't really prevent that fully, so you don't go into resistance with it. You know, you're just like, oh, you know, I'm starting to feel it. I'm getting hit, you know, and it depends on the situation. Like say if I'm in a shopping mall and I feel this coming on, I actually go to places in the mall where I know it's calm and quiet, just to recenter. What can also work is to drink something, like to always have a water. I always have a water bottle with me, because that can ground our energy, or to like try to find a cafe or something and then just sit down for a moment and have a coffee or tea. What can also help is to you know, like just turn off all distractions as good as you can, you know, like avoid places where there's a lot of rah-rah, you know, just avoid those places. And that is in supermarkets often the case for every one of you who may have shared this kind of experience, that you feel like drained and totally shot after you come out of a supermarket, is to avoid those places that we know kind of that make us feel drained. Like in the supermarket where I go to, there's a specific pockets of energy where I know here I feel more drained than here. Like the worst place is usually the checkout area. You know? So you want to avoid, like say, long lines on registers and stuff like that, because there you kind of caught, you know, you kind of standing there and everybody's impatient and they're pushing and they, you know, and they want to. So this is an unfavorable energetic condition. It's better than to like, you know, let me go back to the produce or the flower department, because that's typically where the energetic bombardment is the least. All right, and just maybe I can get a few flowers for my house, and by the time you come back to the register, to the checkout area, you know, maybe the line is gone or something like that. So you learn how to maneuver through these things. But yes, so the answer is really yes, and Julian, correct. when we get hit, and which we can't always avoid, and we feel drained, and we feel, all right, well, just accept it. Okay, take a shower, or whatever that helps you, even if it only takes 5 minutes or something that you have to like add to whatever your schedule was. Make a conscious effort to ground yourself again and to clear those energies off. When this is a situation that we experience at work, and we spend quite a considerable amount of time in those conditions, then it's important to develop some kind of daily routine, some clearing routine when we come home or before we come home. I've experimented a lot with this in the past. What works for me, I would definitely recommend you guys to experiment with it. Like I did things like before I come home, I'd stop at a park just for like 10 minutes and walk it off a little bit, or like I would usually go like 10, 15 years ago, I'd go to the supermarket before I come home. I will not do this anymore. I brace myself before I go to the supermarket. So if I'm already shot from work, right, I'm not going to the supermarket. No way. I'm going to have to ground myself first. I'm going to have to clear myself first. So what you can hear in this, and in me sharing this, is that I'm taking my energetic condition seriously. So I do know that pretty much all my reactions and and how I see my environment and how I see others depends on my energy. And so I really take this seriously, which means that I've integrated ways, or I'm in the process of integrating ways that help my energy to calm, to center, to become invisible, or to become very conscientious about what I'm exerting, what I'm projecting, in each and every area of my life. So this is sort of the disclaimer here with Kaylin's question. Yes, it is a good thing to be in your heart in public places, but you got to know how to work it, all right? How to deal with it. You're going to get hit anyway, all right? So just because we couldn't see this before doesn't mean it didn't happen before. It's just that now that we are able to connect with who we truly are and what it feels like to be, like Cheryl said earlier, the new normal, how we truly want to be. We are recognizing the difference more clearly. We are recognizing now what it is, what it feels like when we are in this sort of frazzled, fragmented chicken with a cut off head firefighter mode. So what we need to learn is to balance out these two states, like Eloise said, to balance, right? To balance. And then there are situations where it is not possible or not advisable to expose ourselves at all. And those are the situations where it's best to be invisible, to just get through it without getting hit. Lay low, pull in, and just get through as fast as you can. There are situations like that.
Jona, hi, this is Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm in a company that's like 80 people plus, and on any given day I interact with from a few people to up to maybe 24 people within the company, and then customers that come in, anywhere from a few people to like 20, 40, 60 people a day. And so my situations was definitely like what Sebastian was sharing with us earlier, and I've been using the same approach that he has been playing with it the past few months, and been seeing some great results as far as not depleting my own energy. So
what did you find out what works for you, Brian, while experimenting?
Well, if I'm interacting with a lot of people, I started off just noticing, observing, taking a third-person look at myself as I interacted with people, and at first, I saw a lot of judgments coming up about this person, that person. I didn't even know anything about them, and seeing, getting past that phase and noticing that I was definitely coming more from neutrality, that invisibility you talked about, and observing, yet not so much from a mental viewpoint, but being conscious that I'm coming from my heart. And so out of that, I find that my compassion meter, so to speak, has been considerably higher than in previous years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's kind of cool. You don't, I didn't realize how much energy I was wasting just judging all the time. And then how that would taint the relationship, so to speak. I mean, it already has it on the downside because you're already judging them before, they're even out the gate, so to speak. So not judging has really helped a lot. Helped a lot. And realizing, and using integrating all the transmissions they provide, and like that, all of it's been starting to come together. And I know the past 6 months or so have been about integration for me, and taking all these different modalities I've learned and implementing it into my 3D TikTok world that I have to interact with on a daily basis. So it's great. The invisibility mode is highly recommended for sure.
I like what you said here a moment ago when you referred to your compassion. I think that's one of the big game changers here in this self-healing journey, is when we can connect.
Well, so I was just going to say that what was a constant theme along with that, and a lot of transmissions, you eventually learn reading posts in the forum, that it's nobody's fault, really. They do better if they could, and that applies to us, and that's what keeps me from beating myself, because I've had a really rough week, physically and etherically and everything. But that's the one thing that I don't beat myself up about, whereas before I would, is I'm not, judging myself, and I'm realizing that, maybe some people's opinions I agree with or not, but, we're all in this together, and we all, it's nobody's fault. I mean, we didn't know better, whatever choices we made earlier, and so just
and also the choices that are being made from the outside. I mean,
right.
That's where the compassion, not just for ourselves, but also for our environment.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And right now, this is one of the big things when we go through this sort of etheric bombardment, okay? So even if you don't understand it fully, it doesn't matter. You can feel it, right? We can feel it. There's something in the air, and we feel it in different parts of our body. Maybe last weekend was one of those where I made this like etheric buzz alert, with the vibrations that were coming in were so high in frequency that they made our bodies vibrate and buzz, and our head explode almost. All right, and still going on. All right, right now, for instance, really, really strong neck and headaches, neck pains and headaches. But even if we don't fully, connect with that, the compassion here is part of our energetic sensitivity. And as we learn to deal with our own energies, we begin to learn to see other people also in their volatility, in their state of bombardment themselves. And right now it seems very appropriate to point out that our energetic sensitivity, the very thing that got us here, that is connecting all of us here right now, and everyone who's listening to this recording, that this is also what helps us to transcend and to neutralize these outer energies. So while it still feels sometimes maybe like it makes it much harder to deal with things, right? Because I forgot who raised that question earlier, but do other people actually feel it? Well, no. You know, it's like when you go to McDonald's every day, you know, and you just eat, you know, fast foods. You don't actually feel how bad that feels because that's your normal. You only notice to feel the difference when you stop eating or stop ingesting these kind of energies and experience lighter, healthier states, and then you begin to notice the difference. So for most people who are in a constant state of ego, and also never really, you know, ego being pain, fear, anger, control, guilt and shame, blame, those are ego states. Being in a constant state of ego, we don't actually recognize how taxing that is. Just like you said, Brian, you didn't even realize how much energy you wasted on being judgmental. All right, so it is only when we're not doing it anymore when we realize, wow, this feels much better. You know, this is
you know, the same thing applies to how much energy. I didn't realize how much energy I used after until I started using modalities for the white shadow. How much energy you expend, you know, using that, you know, the white shadow.
Yeah. Like trying to be somebody or trying to be seen in a certain light, or seeing ourselves through the eyes of others, or wanting approval. That's what the white shadow is. Yeah, that's a tricky one, man. That is
that's
often
very deceiving. Yeah.
Yes, this is ingrained in our earliest childhood, and even if we are fully aware of it, to completely transcend that can take a lifetime. So not to be pessimistic here, but you know, it's also a part of our choices, and that's at the end of the day here where this is supposed to lead us. I mean, it's called self-healing, you know, self-healing as in self-responsible, self-aware, you know, self-worth, self-value, and all these self-reflective abilities that we can develop here. All this then leads to what gives us better choices, what gives or puts us in a place of being able to make better choices, or to even have a choice. All right, so self-healing in its essence means to recognize that we have a choice.
I think that I personally feel I'm so blessed to have come across your teachings and others. And I was thinking about Brian said about the white shadow. That was a huge part of me for a long time. And then when I turned the tap off, mostly with family of origin, wow, the backlash that came from that was horrendous. And like, if you don't have a training manual, which I didn't, no idea what was happening. None, zero zip. Just knew it didn't fit anymore, turned it off, and then there's a whole shitload of other stuff that comes flying at you as a result of that. So, you know,
why is she not doing this anymore? Don't you care about us? Don't you love us anymore?
I know. So now you just tap into my victim instead. So the trick is on this layer upon layer stuff is, and I've seen this so many times, but I had no true concept of what it was until I started with the Warrior Boot Camp. And like you had said in somewhere along the line before, Jonas, you don't even know why you called it the Warrior Boot Camp, but so many references to the courage of battle or other references of the same sort that it takes to be on this journey. And just that one little thing I said, you know, I make a choice to clear up my white shadow or some other trait about me, and the people around me rebel. And it takes a lot of fortitude to plow through. And I had nothing, I had no beacon in the light. I didn't know that I was aiming towards opening my heart chakra, etc., etc. I just couldn't do that anymore. So it takes a very courageous person, and I commend all of us that are on this journey to do that, especially the people that are trying to do it without a map. It's an incredible feat, and I think it's probably the bravest thing. You know, people go and have causes, and maybe they go to war as a soldier, or maybe they find the cure for cancer or what. But doing this internal thing is way bigger than anything else, because it's a constant is amazing. And I'm just so grateful that there is a place to talk about it and to share it with like-minded people, like the folks that speak on these things. They say things and it's just like light bulb after light bulb comes on, and we are all the same. And it's such a beautiful feeling to have this camaraderie of an orchestra of fools, or whatever you want to call it.
No, thank you, Cheryl, for pointing this out. This is really the essence here of these webinars, of these meetings that we do, and everything else, like the commentary in the forum and Facebook and YouTube. It doesn't matter. It's all about that. It's all about getting ourselves out of that bubble of isolation, fed, fueled by victimhood or by injustice. And to come out of that and to realize, well, wait a minute, we're, for one, we're not alone with this. And two, well, I guess I just have to accept that most people won't really understand it as of right now. Okay, so it is a bit going against the grain, but it doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be something that I need to degrade while I'm plowing through this. Like you said, it is plowing through this. So that's the warrior part in us. But at the same time, if we don't resist it, and if we just use our compassion, our empathy, and like these tools such as invisibility and really learning how to tap into our choices, then it becomes actually quite an enjoyable ride. It's not always without bumps on the road, but it really opens up a whole new perspective to life, and we begin to actually realize how much of this energy that we could use for manifesting love around us, manifesting abundance, health, and so forth, how much we have been wasting before, and how much we have available now to actually create a more positive or a more conducive environment or condition around us. So in that way, you mentioned cause earlier, Cheryl. I think when we named the Heart Warrior program, which is nothing but the intensified version here of the Sacred Self-Healing program, then we had in mind this back and forth in us between wanting to be in our hearts and also fulfilling our purpose, fulfilling our cause. And so the word Heart Warrior kind of led to this this concept of merging these two parts in us together, of really bringing them together. And so everything that we talked about here today actually leads into this direction. It's about, yes, opening our hearts, but understanding what being in our heart means. All right? Being in our heart does not mean to be in a place of sort of mushiness or weakness or anything like this. And we don't need to project that out either. We don't need to hug everyone or to tell everyone how much we love them or whatever. This is not really the essence of being in the heart. The essence of being in our heart is of being in a state of wholeness, of being in a state of centeredness. And if we fully explore our ability to actually be in this place at volition, then it's not a struggle anymore.
Mm.
So the heart warrior in us is basically where we are all at. You know, it's that straddling the two worlds, like Cheryl said. But this can become one in us, so that it is not that our cause is not struggling against the injustice of this world, you know, and fixing other people and fixing the world and saving, you know, others. But the cause then turns into really connecting with this abundant place, this unconditional place within us, and realizing that through this we are actually providing the conditions for others to do the same. That then becomes the cause, but in a silent way, not through projecting it out, but through being it, through becoming it.
Can I share a little bit about my week?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I just had been working with Jona recently about looking at my codependent, controlling aspects that I had been, you know, more oblivious to than not. And then I went into my workplace, which is a physical therapy clinic, where my job is to help people get better. And I would just say this whole week for me has just been a wash of observations on every level. So I began to see how very much my energy with my patients had a level of like being connected to the outcome with them.
Mm-hmm.
That I now relate to that controlling part of me, and that it was possible to still, I mean, I'm not saying I got this figured out by any means, but just to kind of crack open Pandora's box, you know, and see, okay, it's not really my job to like be about making them do what they need to do for themselves.
All right. We can't
it's
really
about,
make other people do anything. Yeah.
I just need to be there and offer them what could be helpful to them, and then, but because of, you know, being a energetically sensitive person, I didn't realize how much my observation of people's, some of their inner workings really, I was taking advantage of that information, or, you know, it's not that I think it's pure by any means, but, you know, my impression of sort of some of the things going on with them to sort of try and help them maneuver in the direction I thought they should go in, that I thought would be good for them. And I realized that wasn't my job.
That's a big one. That's a big one, you know, that we want others to be somewhere or at a place, even if it's just our own excitement about what we know and where we are, you know, we have good intentions, but it does create that projection that we talked about earlier. Then we begin to judge, you know, are they good enough, you know, are they doing it, you know, why aren't they listening to me, you know, and all that. That's then what creates the friction. That's then what creates.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So for me to kind of experience the possibility of sort of a deeper level of neutrality. So a lot of the words I heard today, balance and neutrality and silence, invisibility, you know, they all kind of connect to this concept of, you know, of still being there in a capacity of service, but with, but in the word I really like is detached. The level of how detached I need to be from the outcome and from the timing and from, I mean, it's there, it's their deal, you know? And so that was like one, you know, level of, you know, just really very intense observation with all my different patients, and then of course always my ongoing observation of you know, my own ego stuff as it, you know, jumps in there, my judgmental stuff or my white shadow stuff, or, you know, so just observing all that and being like, you know, moment to moment, just kind of letting it go and realizing my ego's with me for the long haul. You know, not, and then on top of all that, the energy that's going on is just like turning up the flame under my patients, so that, you know, again, you know, I see them not just their physical condition that they bring in to have therapy for, but you know, like a lot of their inner workings are they like able to connect with the part of them that really wants to get better? Are they able to enable themselves to get better, or are they caught in like self-sabotaging things, or are they, you know, a lot of that stuff is just becomes quite prominent in just interacting with somebody, and a lot of that stuff is just more, you know, so people are in more physical pain, they're in more mental pain, they're in more confusion, I mean, it's just like, I said to somebody at work, and I didn't even realize the depth of this comment until later, is I feel like I'm not doing physical therapy so much this week as I'm just, you know, trying to negotiate with all this other stuff that's going on for people so that we can maybe eventually get to the physical therapy. You know?
This is exactly what we talk about when we talk about creating the right conditions. And we have to cut it short here now, but this is exactly what you're looking at for these next 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, you're going to be dealing, especially those of you who are interacting with a lot of people, or even in the healing arts. We're going to be dealing with extremely challenging energetic conditions, which means that whatever else people want to manifest will be a lot harder. Okay, will be a lot harder because it will distract them. It will distract them into fear, into anger, and into pain. And our, if you will, you know, sort of objective then needs to be to see this. And instead of focusing on changing a specific outcome or controlling the situation, is to be the one that provides like a slightly better condition. And the way we do this is by transcending all these things that we have become aware of in the course of our journey for ourselves. That is the best way of being of service for others. And so it is not what people do, it is how they approach it and how they handle it. That is sort of the thing here underneath, and the same for us as well. When we get triggered, whatever it is, fear, pain, anger, control, guilt, shame, stop yourself for a moment and ask yourself, I apologize for all this background noise, and ask yourself, what is truly underneath that? What is really underneath that? Why am I feeling agitated? Why am I feeling, what is rubbing me the wrong way? Whether it's with myself or in conjunction with others. Go a step deeper and neutralize that. Detach from that. Like Deb said, consciously detach from it. Because you can't detach or neutralize what you cannot acknowledge or what you cannot see. And if it helps, like many of you have experienced this week, use other people as mirror. If you get this like really weird type of pattern that you can see in other people reacting to you, all right, well, first of all, it's not all yours, okay? But if people are still sort of if they project a lot, if they exert a lot of energy in your presence, then try to consciously calm this down by calming yourself down. The biggest mistake we do, and this has to do with how our nervous system is designed, is that when somebody else comes in with a certain intensity, is that we're trying to top it or withdraw, fight, flight, or freeze. Mm. Those are our naturally programmed reactivity patterns. And when we're in these reactivity patterns, we cannot detach. So in order to detach, we have to learn how to decode our own reactivity. What is it that I'm truly reacting to here? And then we can detach. And as we let go, and this is the coolest thing, you can see this happening in others right there, like Sebastian shared with us, like Cheryl shared with us. Now, when we have relationships, you know, like with our loved ones or with our family, where there's a lot of dysfunctional patterns in place, and then our sudden shift and our sudden detachment from things can actually irritate people more. Okay, because then they get kind of confused. Like, wait a minute, you know, like we said earlier, well, why is she not doing this anymore? Is there anything wrong with her? Is there anything wrong with me? You know, so they get confused, and they can get, you know, through this insecurity, become even more defensive or even offensive. So we have to breathe through those things, because, and this is the last sentence that I'm going to say here, because that's summarizing really everything. The ego likes what's familiar. So the more familiar something is, the more safe it feels. This is not what we are trying to work for here. We're trying to work for what's most beneficial. And oftentimes what's most beneficial feels very irritating for our ego because it's new. And so with everything that is going on around you right now, politically, there's some heavy stuff going on there, and a lot of distortion, a lot of distraction in the media, but also environmentally. We're going to be looking at earthquakes, we're going to be looking at floods, and possibly you know, some really strong hurricanes and typhoons. They're all like they're all like already there energetically, okay? And that, of course, then can lead to another level of intensification of this distraction, of this being sort of pushed into the survival mode. So with all this going on and your physical sensations on top of everything, try to really, really stay calm. Really stay calm within yourself. And let go of whatever rubs you the wrong way. Because if you energize that, the outer conditions are going to be much harder and much more struggle for you. So if you can stay calm, you know, then, and not resist, you know, your inner guidance there. Because your inner guidance will tell you, like, say, when you have to leave, you know, when you just have to walk out, you know, or when you just have to become invisible. Or when you have to connect with your heart. Your inner guidance will tell you that. Listen to that. And it will feel less of a struggle.
Jona, if I can just add really quick to what Brian said about that depleting outlet for energy. While Brian was talking about that, I just reminded myself about one thing, and it is in connection to what we've been talking at the beginning. From my personal experience, you know, that judgment as that energy depleting outlet is one thing, but another thing was that fear of some energies lingering around that they're gonna attack me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I remember that like at the beginning, I had those passengers, and I felt that their energy is very aggressive, and I caught myself in that cycle that I need to protect myself. I need to protect myself, and it is always with that underlying fear of that something will happen. And after our last coaching sessions with you and with Jeff, I realized that what you've been tapping to, that our heart is the best protector. So I don't really need to care whatever those energies are, and I don't need to fear about anything. I don't need to focus on like very hardly to protect myself. I need to focus to connect with my heart, and that's that's enough. And I realized lately while doing that, and I usually do that, like we do at the beginning of any transmission, just to breathe through my heart. And through that process, I just let go of that energy draining outlet. I would waste so much energy just focusing on protecting myself, and that energy still would kick my butt at some point. But right now, I just breathe through my heart, and I don't care about those energies. Right. Obviously, they are there, and I cannot do anything about that. So why wasting my time and thinking? Exactly.
Good one. Yes, it's the same with judgment. It's the same with pain. It's the same with victimhood. The same with all of these ego states. That if we energize them, our energy becomes defensive, and when we become defensive, we become vulnerable. So it is that when I said earlier, we need to look deeper and see what is underneath that. We need to see what we're feeding. What am I feeding? So with what you shared, you realized that you were actually feeding fear. Okay. With what Brian shared was or what I shared too, was that we're feeding judgment. And judgment, of course, then feeds guilt. Judgment feeds blame. And then guilt and blame feeds victimhood. And victimhood feeds pain. And pain feeds fear. And fear feeds control. Okay? I think you got it. All right? So that's these new rules of disengagement. All right? They basically all lead to the same point, and that is, number one, you can't control what comes in from the outside anyway, so it's kind of useless trying to control it. And the other one is that you really, when you're in your center, you're the strongest. Now, before I let you go, all of you, I want to just say one more thing. Some of these energies that we are experiencing right now are quite dark, okay? And if there's a part of you that feels like, oh, this is dark. I may want to do something about it. Don't resist that either. Okay, because there is some stuff going on, and the more you tuned in, and the more you can disengage from your own ego, the more you'll be able to discern that. And then you may ask, well, what could I do? All right. Well, again, your best protection is your heart. Yes, and like Julian is mentioning here, do not energize it. Don't energize the fear. Okay? And that's the moment when you can pull your inner heart warrior out, and show it the finger. It's like, not with, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm not going there. All right, so just be aware of it. So that this has to do with this courage that we're developing. That you begin to see those kind of things as well, and it's okay. It's not worse than your inner demons. Okay, it's the same thing. You handle them the same way as you handle your inner darkness. Okay. So you all stay tuned. We have an energetic adjustment session here tonight, dealing with chaotic energies. I'm about to send out the instructions. This will train our energy system to be better in disengaging and reconnecting with the essence. And as you all know, use your meditations We have lots of different platforms where we can communicate these things. So even if you're not in a hardware program or don't have regular coaching sessions, emails, forum, all of this, do not think that you are on your own with any of this. Okay, so just reach out and take advantage of what here Brian, Cheryl, Deb, Sebasto, and Julian, Eloise, all of you who shared here and contributed here, what they have been pointing out, namely that it makes a huge difference when we can actually share and process things together. All right. Well, thank you so much. Heads up.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
We went over time, but this was a really cool discussion, and I love it how this is becoming more and more interactive and how we can all learn from another. So come back to the next meeting. I don't know when that is. We have also a free workshop coming up for the Sacred Self-Healing members, which is called Dealing with Energetic Sensitivity. Pretty soon here, the end of August. So stay tuned and read the energy updates or watch the videos, just so you know you're not alone. Okay? All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.